Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting part 1 of an awesome What If Deku Had One Night of Pure Harem story. If you want to see part 2, drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. Now sit back, relax, and let's jump into the story. Significant impact where it had once stood. Breathing, Izuku glared at Shigaraki, the energy of one for all crackling around him. His expression conveyed a clear message to the villain. Is that all you've got? This only fueled Shigaraki's anger. He shouted at Izuku, his voice filled with rage, expressing his disdain for the boy, claiming he was nothing compared to Nomu and threatening to end him. Izuku couldn't help but think that Shigaraki sounded a lot like Bakugo as he prepared for the villain's next move. To his surprise, a wall of ice suddenly erupted between them. Todoroki checked on Izuku, asking if he was okay. Izuku smiled and gave a thumbs up, but the ice wall crumbled as Shigaraki placed his hand on it. He called out for Kurogiri, demanding portals. Before he could finish, an explosion echoed through the area as Bakugo leapt in unexpectedly, catching Kurogiri off guard and knocking him down. Kirishima rushed to Izuku's side, while Todoroki stood on his other side. Izuku declared that Shigaraki should surrender, pointing out that the villain was beaten, his allies were down, and he was alone. Shigaraki's laughter filled the USJ, unsettling the students as he mocked them, insisting he was far from finished and calling for Nomu. Nomu emerged from its hiding place, towering over Izuku and his classmates, its hands poised to strike. Both Todoroki and Kirishima activated their quirks, Todoroki forming a large dome of ice and Kirishima hardening his body. However, Nomu easily shattered Todoroki's dome and sent him flying with a powerful gust, while Kirishima was struck hard, causing him to cry out in pain as his arms bent unnaturally. Izuku reacted swiftly, activating his quirk to blur and catch both boys before they hit the ground. He was dismayed to find them unconscious. Gently placing them down, he positioned himself protectively in front of them. Shigaraki pondered his next move, excitement evident in his tone. Before he could act, a loud boom resonated from the entrance of the USJ as the door was blown off its hinges, sunlight flooding in. A commanding voice echoed throughout the USJ, announcing the arrival of a large figure. All Might stepped into the light, surveying the scene and locking eyes with Izuku and the fallen boys. His expression turned serious as he blurred into motion, appearing beside Izuku and holding a frustrated Bakugo by the collar. Bakugo protested, insisting he had the situation under control. All Might countered that Bakugo would have been in danger had he continued, emphasizing the need for caution. The moment was not right for Bakugo's anger. He needed to protect his classmates. All Might instructed Izuku to follow him. Frustrated, Bakugo positioned himself in front of Kirishima and Todoroki. Meanwhile, All Might and Izuku shared a brief understanding as they approached Nomu, both knowing what needed to be done. Izuku powered up his full cowl, blurring and appearing behind Nomu. He charged forward, using his shoulders to lift the creature off the ground. In the same instant, All Might surged ahead, gripping Nomu's wrists and spinning rapidly. Izuku quickly moved aside as the two blurred together. Finally releasing Nomu, the spectacle was broadcasted across Japan as the creature was propelled out of the USJ, crashing through the roof and disappearing into the distance. Shigaraki stood in shock, frozen by the turn of events. Realizing the situation was deteriorating and seeing a group of pro-heroes from UA approaching, Kurogiri made the decision to retreat, enveloping Shigaraki in a portal and vanishing. Both All Might and Izuku stood tall, catching their breath, aware they were on camera. The stunned camera crew approached them, expressing their gratitude. All Might laughed while Izuku scratched his head, humbly stating that they couldn't take all the credit. He acknowledged that Eraserhead and 13 had been injured while assisting them, and that the situation would have been far worse without the help of their classmates. Izuku Midoriya felt a surge of pride as All Might placed a hand on his shoulder, acknowledging his accomplishments. All Might expressed that it was during their earlier confrontation that he realized the creature possessed a shock absorption quirk, which would have rendered his punches ineffective. He praised Izuku's invaluable assistance in resolving the situation, affirming that he had made the right choice in selecting him as his successor. The atmosphere shifted as those words resonated. In a tall building, a man with a fiery beard unleashed a roar, flames billowing around him. His subordinates were simply relieved that the structure was fireproof. In a smaller building, a man with sharp eyes observed Izuku with a scoff. Meanwhile, a man sharpened his sword while watching the USJ from a dilapidated apartment. He smiled at the news of All Might's successor, his thoughts drifting as he regarded his weapon. Bakugo stood frozen as All Might recounted how he had discovered Izuku's talents and heroic spirit long before UA, deciding to train him as his personal student to become the next #1 hero. With a glare directed at the green-haired boy, Bakugo vowed to put Izuku in his place and prove to All Might who the true future #1 was. Across Japan, including within the USJ, women began to take notice of Izuku Midoriya, captivated by his every feature, some even liking their lips in admiration. It was clear that Izuku's life was about to become significantly more chaotic. Izuku sighed as he lay on his back, enjoying the comforting presence of his classmates. All of Class 1A, along with the other heroics classes at UA, had been required to stay in the dorms for a week following the USJ attack. This arrangement suited Izuku well, as he had become a target. 3 days had passed since the assault, and during that time, Izuku faced numerous questions from his classmates regarding All Might's announcement. Most were thrilled, though a few, like Iida and Kirishima, insisted they would continue to strive for excellence, which Izuku encouraged. After all, they had to go plus ultra. However, 2 classmates were less than pleased. Bakugo, as expected, raged at Izuku, nearly confronting him until Midnight intervened, glaring at Bakugo before rushing to check on Izuku, much to his embarrassment. Bakugo was subsequently confined to his dorm room for the week, with meals delivered to him. Todoroki, on the other hand, seemed focused on Izuku and his connection to All Might, but unlike Bakugo, he chose to leave him alone. Izuku also noticed that Ashido and Tsuyu were giving him more flirtatious looks, and possibly Hagakure as well, though he couldn't be certain. Uraraka had also been looking at him more frequently, her cheeks often flushed. As for Momo and Kyoka, Momo playfully engaged with Izuku, her enthusiasm evident as she expressed her admiration for him. Izuku felt a rush of affection as he traced his hand along Kyoka's cheek, drawing her closer. The bond between them deepened as they shared a moment of connection. As the week progressed, the dynamics within their group shifted, with Izuku becoming the center of attention in ways he had never anticipated. The challenges ahead would test their friendships and resolve, but together they would face whatever came next. Izuku grinned at the sight before him, raising a hand and playfully swatting Kyoka, the sound echoing through the room. The 3 of them continued their playful antics, unaware of a certain individual observing them from Izuku's window. Tsuyu clung to the wall, captivated by the actions of her classmates. The frog girl had been restless in her bed for the past 3 nights, unable to shake thoughts of Midoriya and his heroic deeds. Frustrated, she decided to climb out of the window and around the building, determined to get closer to Izuku. She was taken aback and more than a little intrigued by what she witnessed. She wondered if Izuku was dating Kyoka and Momo or if they were just friends. Curiosity filled her mind as she pondered how this all began and how she could join in. Tsuyu had been watching Izuku interact with the 2 girls for nearly 2 hours, and he showed no signs of slowing down. She marveled at his stamina, wondering how he managed to keep going. Carefully, so as not to be seen, Tsuyu moved a little closer to the window, feeling a surge of anticipation. She needed to gather her courage before making her move. Izuku expressed his delight as he held Kyoka close, her face nestled against his chest. They had teamed up to playfully tease Momo, who had succumbed to exhaustion, a blissful smile on her face. Now, Izuku and Kyoka were enjoying their time together. Kyoka encouraged Izuku to be more assertive, expressing her longing for him to show her his strength. Izuku, feeling the energy surge within him, activated his quirk, enhancing his abilities as he embraced the moment. Kyoka's eyes widened as she experienced a wave of pleasure, her body responding to the intensity of the moment. She felt overwhelmed by the sensations coursing through her body surrendering to the experience. After a while, Izuku noticed that Kyoka had become unresponsive. He gently laid her down on the bed next to the still dazed Momo. Realizing he still felt energized, he tried to calm himself. Just then, the window opened and Tsuyu appeared, her eyes filled with determination. Izuku was surprised but intrigued by her boldness. He gestured for her to come closer, curious about her intentions. Tsuyu approached, her gaze locked on Izuku, eager to connect. She followed his lead, moving closer as he encouraged her. The atmosphere was charged with excitement as they shared a moment of connection. Izuku felt a rush of exhilaration as Tsuyu engaged with him, the energy in the room shifting. He was caught up in the moment, feeling the thrill of their interaction. As the intensity grew, Izuku found himself lost in the experience, overwhelmed by the sensations and the connection they shared. The room was filled with an electric energy, and he reveled in the excitement of the moment. Eventually, the two of them shared a moment of understanding, their connection deepening as they navigated the complexities of their feelings. Izuku felt a sense of fulfillment as they embraced the bond they were forming, leaving behind the chaos of the world outside. Izuku looked down, admiring his efforts, a smile spreading across his face as he noticed Tsuyu's belly, which appeared round and full. The frog girl herself was gently rubbing her stomach, breathing heavily, her tongue lolling out as she tried to catch her breath. The movement of her body caught Izuku's attention, causing him to feel a rush of excitement. Tsuyu, balancing on slightly shaky legs, made her way to the bed with care. She laid her upper body on the mattress, playfully swaying her hips in Izuku's direction, which made his heart race. Encouraged by her playful demeanor, Izuku felt a surge of determination. He reached out, playfully squeezing her sides, enjoying the way she reacted with soft sounds of delight. As he moved closer, he felt the warmth of her presence, and a teasing challenge hung in the air. Izuku playfully suggested that he was considering his next move, wanting her to entice him further. Tsuyu, caught up in the moment, responded with enthusiasm, eager to show him just how much she wanted to engage with him. Izuku was inspired by the intensity of the moment. He felt a surge of energy as the power of One for All surrounded him. With a determined expression, he moved forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Izuku moved with fervor, fully immersed in the moment, feeling the warmth and tightness surrounding him. The sensations heightened as he continued, each movement bringing them both closer to a peak of pleasure. After a while, he reached a 𝐭𝐼𝐸, feeling a rush of satisfaction as he pulled away, wiping his hands clean. He looked down at Tsuyu, who was expressing her delight with soft sounds, lost in the bliss of the experience. Izuku noticed Tsuyu's playful demeanor as she glanced back at him. Captivated by her charm, he playfully patted her on the back, eliciting a slight stir from her. Tsuyu turned her head slightly, her expression curious as she looked at him, her eyes filled with questions. He was too caught up in the moment to respond. Izuku felt a surge of excitement building within him. He noticed that Tsuyu had lost herself in the moment, her eyes fluttering as she lay back on the bed. He was dimly aware that Kyoka had regained some consciousness, sensing her gaze upon him. Eager to show his girlfriend what awaited her later, Izuku began to move with increasing intensity, his determination evident as he worked harder. With a powerful, silent roar, he reached his peak, feeling a rush of exhilaration. Afterward, he withdrew, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over him. Noticing Kyoka trying to inch closer, Izuku gently lifted her in a bridal carry and settled them both on the bed, her head resting comfortably against his chest. With a playful grin, he remarked about their new pet frog, eliciting a light slap and a giggle from Kyoka before they both succumbed to the embrace of sleep. A young man could become a hero. Those words resonated in the mind of 13-year-old Izuku Midoriya as he sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. The emotional weight of the day overwhelmed him. His former friend's harassment, the near-death experience being saved, the rejection, the act of rescuing his former friend, and finally, The words spoken by his hero all collided at once. All Might in his slender form looked at the boy he had chosen as his successor with a hint of exasperation. Young Midoriya was clearly overwhelmed with emotion, but All Might recognized the heroic spirit that lay beneath that sensitive exterior. After a moment of contemplation, he quickly produced a card and handed it to the boy, who managed to grasp it tightly. Young Midoriya was instructed to meet All Might at Dagobah Beach the following morning. The card contained All Might's number, and he requested that the boy send a message upon returning home for further details. With that, the iconic figure of All Might departed, leaving Izuku alone. Clutching the card, his mind racing with excitement, he had All Might's number. Izuku took a deep breath as he stood atop a towering heap of trash. It had been 10 months since he first encountered All Might, Mr. Yagi, as he preferred to be called, and he had just completed an arduous journey of cleaning an entire beach littered with debris. The results were evident. Izuku had transformed his once slender frame into that of a professional athlete. Lean yet muscular, his body radiated strength and speed, although there was one thing it lacked: a quirk. Specifically, All Might's quirk, One for All, which it could be passed from one person to another. Fortunately, Izuku had spent the last 10 months preparing his body for this quirk. Unfortunately, that preparation involved consuming a strand of All Might's hair, which Izuku found quite unpleasant. The greatest advantage was that All Might had personally invited Izuku to join him at UA, the premier university renowned for producing some of the greatest heroes, including All Might himself. It was here that All Might would teach Izuku how to harness the power of One for All. Before long, they arrived at UA, where they were greeted by Principal Nizu and the school's nurse, the youthful heroine known as Recovery Girl. After enthusiastically requesting their autographs, Izuku was led to a gymnasium, where a human-shaped dummy awaited. All Might began with enthusiasm, striking a pose. He explained that this would be Izuku's first lesson in controlling One for All. Eager to absorb the wisdom from the number one hero, Izuku leaned forward, ready to learn. All Might instructed him to focus, clench his muscles, channel the power within, throw his fist forward, and shout a powerful command. As All Might laughed, Izuku, slightly confused, assumed a novice punching stance, directing his body toward the dummy. Neither teacher nor student noticed the worried expressions on Nezu and Recovery Girl's faces, nor the disapproving gaze of a hidden observer. They were caught up in the moment, oblivious to the impending consequences. With determination, Izuku unleashed his fist, calling out the command. A surge of energy enveloped his arm, and a powerful gust of wind erupted throughout the gym, demolishing the dummy and sending debris flying. However, the force had an unintended consequence. Izuku's arm was left in a painful state, twisted and bruised. Realizing the severity of his injury, he stared at his arm in shock before letting out a cry of distress. Recovery Girl sprang into action, rushing forward to examine the boy's arm. With a quick assessment, she guided the still screaming Izuku to her office, casting a stern look at All Might as they departed. Feeling the weight of the situation, All Might turned to face Principal Nezu, who wore a piercing expression, alongside another man dressed in dark colors and a scarf obscuring his face. Shota Aizawa, known as the pro-hero Eraserhead, expressed the need for a serious discussion. Aizawa sighed as he observed Midoriya training with an elderly man named Gran Torino. After reprimanding All Might, they had sent Midoriya home instructions to refrain from using his quirk for a week before returning. Aizawa needed that time to process the chaos that All Might and Nezu had moved upon him. He lamented his choice to become a teacher, contemplating a plan for the boy. If Midoriya was to be All Might's successor, he would ensure that he inherited only the best qualities of the hero, while steering clear of his reckless tendencies. This included training in combat and developing a combative mindset, as well as discovering his own unique approach to One for All. To assist with this, All Might had called upon an old mentor, Gran Torino. Initially, Aizawa found the symbol of peace's decision frustrating. How intimidating could an elderly retired hero really be? However, he had to admit that All Might had a valid point regarding the old man's demeanor. After a spirited sparring session with All Might, which Aizawa found quite enjoyable, 𝐺𝐴𝐴 had guided Midoriya in unlocking the potential of One for All, at least in his current state. The boy was not yet capable of utilizing 100% of the power. No child could, so he focused on a smaller percentage. At that moment, he was training to Harem's 5%, leaping around energetically and occasionally practicing some katas that Aizawa had demonstrated. Considering the boy's physique and natural agility, Aizawa thought that karate and taekwondo would suit him well. He made a mental note to find some instructional videos for Midoriya to watch during his downtime. Sighing, the pro hero pulled out his vibrating phone and grimaced at the caller ID. Upon answering, Aizawa held the phone at a distance, allowing the initial shout to fade before bringing it closer. "What is it, Mike?" Izuku felt exhausted after another rigorous training session with Aizawa, All Might, and 𝐺𝐴𝐴. A month had passed since he received One for All, and the green-haired boy was steadily making progress. After weeks of nearly continuous training and a closely monitored weightlifting regimen, Izuku could now control up to 10% of One for All, channeling it throughout his entire body. His full cowling technique and combat style were also advancing. After being told quite sternly by Aizawa and 𝐺𝐴𝐴 that he couldn't match All Might's raw power, Izuku decided to concentrate on speed, precision, and technique. He reasoned that strength would come in time as he mastered more of One for All. His instructors had all concurred, although All Might still appeared somewhat downcast over the critiques of his fighting style, which Izuku secretly found amusing, especially since it contributed to his own injury. Lying down, Izuku tuned out the conversation between his instructors, more focused on hydrating and relaxing. Suddenly, loud voices interrupted their activities, causing Aizawa to look around in a panic for an escape. One voice was tall and lanky, with wild blonde hair, while the other was curvaceous with dark hair. "Oh no, not now," Aizawa thought. The exuberant figure exclaimed joyfully, greeting the others, while the second voice added a playful remark about Aizawa hiding a charming young boy. Inko Midoriya considered herself a good mother, despite what others might think. She was acutely aware of her son's struggles and the pain he had endured throughout his life. What mother wouldn't recognize her child's suffering? She had desperately wanted to help him. However, fear gripped her. After Izuku was diagnosed as quirkless, her husband had left, leaving her and their son to fend for themselves, relying solely on child support and alimony. The worry for her son's well-being had taken a toll on her, leading her to overeat and neglect her health, resulting in gradual weight gain over the years. Despite her efforts to advocate for her son, whether at school, with the police, or against the parents of his classmates, nothing seemed to change. She could see her son was in pain, and it felt like there was nothing she could do. Her only friend, Mitsuki Bakugo, was the mother of Izuku's greatest bully, which made her feel even more isolated, especially after her husband, Masaru, passed away from a heart attack. However, everything shifted 11 months ago when Izuku began to work out. Though Inko hoped he wasn't resorting to steroids, as she would not hesitate to discipline him for that. He had gained a bit of confidence. A month ago, he had burst into their apartment, brimming with excitement. Inko didn't know what had thrilled him so much, but she was happy to see him joyful. Now, she found herself seated with 8 pro heroes, including All Might, alongside her son. They had just finished explaining what Izuku had been up to over the past year. Inko leaned back on the couch and took a deep breath. She began, her voice calm and steady. "So let me clarify, you Yagi have chosen Izuku to be your successor, not only as the No. One hero, but also to inherit your quirk, Nods." All Might explained that Izuku's quirk, One for All, was now passed down to him, Nods. He continued, stating that Izuku had been attending UA almost every day, learning to master this quirk with guidance from Mr. Torino and Mr. Aizawa, Nods. Inko's voice grew colder as she focused on All Might, expressing her concern about the first time Izuku used his quirk, resulting in a broken arm, which All Might had anticipated. All Might mumbled that it could have been worse, but he quickly fell silent under the intense glares from Aizawa and 𝐭𝐽, the latter's gaze more piercing than before. Izuku groaned softly, resting his head in his hands. 𝐭� demanded an explanation. All Might hesitated, revealing that if he had given the quirk to Izuku a year earlier, it could have resulted in serious harm to his body. The moment those words left his mouth, he felt an overwhelming pressure as 𝐭� stood, her glare penetrating deeply. The others on the couch instinctively shifted away from All Might as 𝐭� approached him, her fist clenched. Each reacted differently to the situation. Izuku groaned again, his face flushed. Nezu calmly sipped his tea, smiling as he shared a moment with 𝐭𝐼𝐼 and Recovery Girl. Mike curled up in a ball, feeling the ominous energy radiating from 𝐭�. Aizawa pulled out his phone just in time to capture 𝐭𝐽's fist coming down toward All Might's head, chuckling to himself as he filmed until 𝐭� calmed down. Taking a deep breath, 𝐭� turned back to the others, smiling as she announced that they had much to discuss. She asked Izuku to set the table for their guests. Nodding, Izuku, feeling nervous, activated full cowling and dashed into the kitchen. 𝐭�'s eyes widened in surprise at witnessing her son's quirk in action, and she smiled, reassured that he would be all right. Midnight remarked that it was the most impressive display she had ever seen, causing everyone to freeze and turn their attention to her. 𝐭�'s face flushed with embarrassment, and she fainted, her eyes swirling. Izuku stood beside his mother, trying to hold back tears. It had been 2 years since he had met All Might and received One for All, and much had changed since then. For starters, 𝐭� had withdrawn him from his old school. Despite Izuku now having a quirk, neither he nor 𝐭� wanted to remain in that environment any longer. Nezu had agreed to tutor Izuku in the necessary subjects before he began attending UA, so his education was secure. Izuku had made significant progress with One for All, now able to use up to 45% of its power. He had also discovered a secret of the quirk, communication with its previous users. Through this mental connection, Izuku unlocked 2 additional quirks from former holders, Black Whip from Daigoro Banjo and Float from Nana Shimura. This revelation had shocked both All Might and 𝐭𝐼𝐼, who were moved to tears by the messages from Nana. Speaking of 𝐭𝐼𝐼, Izuku's bond with his teachers had grown into a familial relationship. He affectionately referred to Mick and Aizawa as uncle, which caused Mick to faint the first time he heard it, while Aizawa simply stared at Izuku in surprise. The two had also become close to 𝐭�, providing her with companionship and relief from her previously solitary life. The most significant change, however, was the evolving relationship between 𝐭� and Nemuri Kayama. After their initial meeting, where Nemuri had made her feelings known, the two had forged a friendship that blossomed into romance. And that brings us to the present moment, a small NTMT wedding officiated by Nezu uniting 𝐭� Midoriya and Nemuri Kayama. Nemuri appeared much like she had a year ago, though with subtle changes, while 𝐭� had transformed the most. She had slimmed down, looking fit and radiating happiness. Izuku had also changed significantly. One for All had accelerated his growth, propelling him from 5'1" to 5'11", and still growing. During a checkup, Recovery Girl had mentioned that he would likely exceed 6 feet in the near future, bringing a smile to the 15-year-old's face. As his mother and Nemuri shared a kiss, sealing their bond, Izuku felt a surge of joy as he contemplated the future. 3 more years loomed ahead of him. Memories flooded Izuku's mind while he waited for his new classmates to finish changing. His familiarity with UA's facilities allowed him to navigate the school effortlessly, changing before anyone else and waiting outside with Aizawa. Aizawa addressed him, referring to him as a problem child, which caught Izuku's attention. He reminded Izuku not to go overboard that day, expressing his reluctance to face Nemuri and 𝐭�'s wrath for allowing any mishaps. Izuku inquired if Aizawa would stop him from using 100% of his power, curious about the limits of his abilities. Aizawa shook his head and sighed, stating that using erasure on him would be illogical, as he reserved that for students who might harm themselves. Izuku acknowledged that he might indeed push himself too hard, but Aizawa pointed out that he would end up being coddled by his mother's and recovery girl, along with Might and All Might. Aizawa, while glaring at Izuku's smirk, sighed again and told him to get ready. Ignoring the intense glare from his former bully Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku stepped into the circle to throw the ball. He hadn't seen Bakugo in years and wanted to avoid provoking him, though he felt that reasoning might be futile given Bakugo's temperament. Pushing those thoughts aside, Izuku grasped the ball and activated One for All, feeling its power surge through him. He adopted a pitching stance and threw the ball, creating a small shockwave that sent dust swirling into the air. Aizawa announced the distance, and everyone stared in amazement as he declared it to be 1,000 meters. Next, Izuku lined up next to Bakugo for the sprint, the power of One for All coursing through him. Ignoring Bakugo's threats, he launched forward at the sound of the starting gun, swiftly overtaking his old friend and crossing the finish line in an instant. The time was recorded at 0.70 seconds. Each test proceeded similarly, with Izuku consistently taking first place thanks to his quirk and rigorous training. The only exception was the ball throw, where his new friend Ochako Kuraraka claimed first place by removing the ball's gravity and sending it soaring into the sky. Aizawa displayed the scores on an electronic board and addressed the class about not expelling anyone. Izuku barely listened, focused instead on his position at the top of the leaderboard and the glares directed at him from Todoroki and Bakugo, completely unaware of the admiring looks from his female classmates. This year promised to be interesting. Kyokujiro turned away from the group of girls in her class. Class 1A had just completed their first heroics class, marking the end of their first week at UA University, and the talk of the class revolved around one individual, Izuku Midoriya. Kyoka understood the appeal. Midoriya was tall and athletic, resembling a pre-quirk Olympic athlete. He was kind and intelligent, unlike some of the other boys, and he didn't exhibit any of the perverse tendencies that others did. He stood out as one of the few males in Class 1A who was both confident and humble, and he seemed to have a good rapport with many of their teachers. Overall, he embodied the ideal qualities. However, Kyoka wasn't seeking a boyfriend at the moment. She aimed to focus on her studies and explore her dreams of merging music and heroism to bring joy and safety to others. Additionally, she felt a bit insecure about her appearance compared to the other girls in her class. While she considered herself somewhat busty, she didn't compare to Yaoyorozu's impressive figure or Uraraka's ample curves, though she was content with her own. She had a nice figure, but it didn't quite match Ashido's or Suyu's. Her punk rocker persona was an integral part of her identity, and she had no intention of changing it for anyone. Even Hakure, who was invisible, had a bubbly personality that captured the attention of both boys and girls. Leaning against the wall with a sigh, Kyoka's enhanced ears picked up a conversation from the boys' side. Mineda's voice rang out, commenting on Bakugo's anger and making a remark about his height. Kyoka felt a wave of disgust at the thought of the openly perverted boy, recalling her mother's words about men and their tendencies. She wondered what Mineta meant by his comment, realizing the implications behind it. Kyoka's mind went blank as she tried to comprehend the situation unfolding around her. She couldn't believe they were discussing such personal topics. Despite her shock, the punk rock girl found herself intrigued, her curiosity piqued. Bakugo erupted in frustration, dismissing the laughter from his classmates. He insisted that his size was perfectly average. Kaminiari chimed in, casually mentioning that the average size was around 5 to 6 inches, adding that size wasn't everything, and that someone must appreciate smaller sizes. Bakugo, infuriated, told him to back off. The boys continued to compare themselves, and Kaoka was surprised to find that most, including Mineta, were around the average length. The real surprise came when Ida revealed he was above average, which made Kyoka think that perhaps a romantic experience might help him relax. However, Mineta's outburst about Midoriya left her stunned. Midoriya, the top student, had somehow managed to embarrass Bakugo during the assessment test. And now this revelation left everyone in disbelief. He seemed flustered, downplaying the situation and expressing his embarrassment. Kyoka's thoughts spiraled as she processed this new information. She had always seen Midoriya as good-looking but too innocent to be involved in anything serious. Shaking her head, Kyoka tried to dismiss the conversation from her mind, telling herself it wasn't a big deal. Ignoring the fluttering feelings inside her, she quickly got dressed and told her classmates she would meet them back in class. She focused on getting through the day, but the thoughts kept creeping back. During the remaining classes, she found herself stealing glances at Midoriya, managing to pull herself back before anyone noticed. The conversation lingered in her mind, and it seemed others were affected too. Bakugo was constantly glaring at Midoriya, still fuming from his earlier humiliation. Midoriya had outperformed him and helped Uraraka during the exercise, which only fueled Bakugo's anger. Some of the boys looked at Midoriya with expressions that Kyoka couldn't quite place: jealousy, admiration, or something else entirely to 𝐂𝐸𝐽. She dismissed it, thinking boys were complicated. Yet, her thoughts returned to Midoriya, and she couldn't shake the image that formed in her mind. As the bell rang, she mentally scolded herself, trying to focus. She stood up to leave but stumbled, nearly falling until strong arms caught her, pulling her against a solid chest. Concern filled Midoriya's voice as he asked if she was all right. Kyoka could only nod, managing a quiet thank you before quickly stepping away. Her cheeks flushed. She hurried out of the classroom and down the hall to the girls' bathroom. Splashing water on her face, she took deep breaths, struggling to regain her composure. Frustration bubbled inside her as she found herself thinking of Midoriya's face every time she closed her eyes, imagining his strong arms around her. Overwhelmed, she groaned, burying her face in her hands, wondering how to escape these thoughts. Then a bold idea struck her. What if she found out for herself? The thought lingered, growing more persistent. If she could confirm her curiosity about him, perhaps she could move on. She whispered to herself, feeling a newfound determination. Straightening up, she put on a confident smile before stepping out, only to be met by a concerned Yaoyorozu. Kyoka assured her friend that she was fine, emphasizing her newfound confidence. They chatted as they walked back to Heights Alliance, and upon entering the dorm, they were greeted by a surprising scene. Midoriya and Sato were in the kitchen, with Sato preparing ingredients for what looked like a pastry, while Midoriya focused on mixing cheeses in a bowl. Sato waved at them, drawing Midoriya's attention away from his task. Kyoka expressed her concern for 𝐂𝐸𝐽, noticing how quickly he had left the room. She approached him with a smile, trying to mask her own nervousness. She asked what he was making, and he gestured to the ingredients laid out on the kitchen counter. He explained that he was preparing his mother's vegetarian lasagna recipe, hoping to create a comforting Western meal. He assured Yaoyorozu that he was making enough to accommodate her quirk, which made her blush and thank him before she excused herself. Once alone with Midoriya, 𝐂𝐸𝐽 hesitated before asking for a favor. He admitted that he struggled with history and noticed how well Midoriya seemed to grasp the subject. He requested help with organizing his notes and memorization tips. Midoriya's smile brightened the room, and he readily agreed, asking if 𝐂𝐸𝐽 preferred to study in the common area or one of their rooms. 𝐂𝐸𝐽 shyly suggested his room, to which Midoriya responded positively, telling him to come by after dinner. Grateful, 𝐂𝐸𝐽 left to prepare for their study session. As Kyoka stood outside Midoriya's door, she felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had chosen a fitted outfit that made her feel self-conscious, worrying about how it might be perceived. Just as she contemplated canceling, the door opened, revealing Midoriya shirtless, which made her cheeks flush. He wore basketball shorts that highlighted his athletic build, and he welcomed her inside with a friendly smile. Taking a seat on his bed, Kyoka held up her notes for Midoriya to review. Their study session began, and she focused on learning while also discovering more about him. They shared personal stories, including his admiration for heroes and his stepmother, Ms. Midnight, which helped Kyoka understand his comfort with her attire. In turn, she shared her experiences, including her family's musical background and her passion for music, which resonated with Midoriya's love for classical rock. As they continued to study, Kyoka decided to ask about his motivations for wanting to be a hero. Midoriya's response was heartfelt. He recalled how All Might's debut video had inspired him. He described the joy and safety he felt watching it, which sparked his longing to help others feel the same way. Kyoka was moved by his selflessness and found herself admiring him more. When he turned the question back to her, she shared her own aspirations. She explained how music had always been a part of her life and how she wanted to bring happiness to others, much like heroes did. She dreamed of creating music that would uplift people and make them feel good. Their conversation deepened their connection, and as they studied together, both felt a growing bond that went beyond academics. Kyoka continued to look down, her voice trembling slightly as she expressed her feelings of shame. She felt her reason for wanting to help was not as noble as others. Her thoughts were interrupted when she felt a rough hand gently lift her chin, bringing her gaze up to meet Izuku's. He was close, likely unaware of the intimacy of the moment, but what truly captivated Kyoka were his eyes, which sparkled with determination as he spoke. He reassured her that her reasons were just as valid as anyone else's, especially his. He emphasized that everyone had their own unique way of contributing to the world. He shared his love for music and its importance, expressing that what she wanted to do was appealing. He believed she was not just saving lives, but also creating something wonderful, making the world a better place in the process. To him, that was the essence of a hero. Overwhelmed by his words and the closeness between them, Kyoka decided to take a leap of faith. She threw herself at Izuku, pushing him back onto his bed. With her hands on either side of his head, she leaned down and pressed her lips against his. After a brief moment, she pulled back, looking into his wide eyes with a smile. She thanked him, and the warmth of using his first name made him momentarily speechless. Seizing the moment, she leaned in again, this time deepening their connection. Izuku had sensed something was different since he first saw Kyoka that day. While he had spent time with Midnight and was somewhat accustomed to the female form, he still found himself questioning her intentions. Did she have feelings for him, or was there another reason behind her actions? His thoughts were interrupted when Kyoka kissed him again, and he decided to let go of his doubts. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her closer as they shared a passionate moment, both feeling the thrill of their connection. As they caught their breath, they gazed into each other's eyes, their hearts racing. Kyoka felt a sudden rush of excitement and was about to lean in again when she noticed something unexpected. She felt a firm pressure against her leg, and curiosity piqued her interest. With a playful glint in her eye, she shifted her position, drawing closer to Izuku. She placed a hand on his thigh, teasingly exploring the area, which elicited a reaction from him. She looked up at him with a mischievous smile, clearly enjoying the moment. She playfully suggested that perhaps it was time for a little fun, and Izuku with a grin agreed, hinting that she should show him something in return. Kyoka feigned shock at his boldness, but the playful banter only added to the tension between them. As she playfully lifted her top, revealing herself, Izuku's reaction was unmistakable. The atmosphere was charged with excitement, and they both felt the thrill of the moment. Kyoka's playful demeanor and Izuku's surprised expression created a whirlwind of emotions, leaving them both breathless. With a playful determination, Kyoka leaned in closer, eager to explore this new territory together. The connection between them deepened, filled with anticipation and excitement as they navigated this new chapter in their relationship. Izuku groaned as Kyoka continued her actions, content to let her set the pace for now. After a few more moments, his breath hitched as he felt a rush of sensation. Kyoka encouraged him, urging him to let go. As he reached his peak, he felt a wave of release, and Kyoka tried to manage it, but it too much for her. She had to pause, and as she did, she collected what she could and maintained eye contact with him, which only intensified his feelings. Izuku was captivated by her determination. With a sudden burst of energy, he shifted their positions, placing Kyoka at the head of the bed while he knelt between her legs. He tugged at her shorts, which she kicked off, revealing her bare skin glistening in the light. He tentatively touched her, drawing soft sounds from her as he explored. Growing bolder, he added more fingers, moving them in a way that kept her on edge, never fully crossing a line. Kyoka's reactions were a mix of frustration and longing, and he could see her pleading looks. With a smirk, he slowly introduced one finger, pushing gently before withdrawing. Kyoka opened her mouth to protest, but he quickly shifted his focus, leaning in to explore her with his tongue. Her breath caught, and she could only respond with soft sounds as he continued, skillfully navigating her. After a few moments, much quicker than any of her previous experiences, Kyoka felt herself reaching a peak, letting out a muffled cry as she experienced a wave of pleasure. Izuku savored the moment, taking in the sight of her in bliss. They both took deep breaths, and Kyoka wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against him, expressing her amazement at the experience. Izuku agreed, feeling the warmth of her body against his. Kyoka giggled, noticing his renewed excitement. She playfully adjusted herself, teasingly moving against him and expressing her longing. Izuku, feeling a growl of determination, held her hips to steady her movements and began to lower her slowly. As he guided her down, he noticed her breath hitch and the tears forming in her eyes. He offered to stop, but she insisted she wanted this, trusting him completely. Touched by her sincerity, he continued to help her down, sharing a gentle kiss that they both cherished. As Kyoka looked down, she noticed the shape of him within her, and the realization of their connection struck her. Despite the initial discomfort, she was determined, lifting herself and then dropping back down, fully embracing their bond. The sensation was overwhelming, and they both felt the intensity of the moment, caught in a mix of emotions and sensations that left them breathless. The tension in the room stirred something within Izuku. He held Kyoka's hips firmly as he guided her onto the bed, her face pressed against the mattress. With a determined expression, he began to move, ensuring his pace was just right to provide a satisfying experience for both of them. Kyoka lifted her head slightly, turning to glance at Izuku, summoning all her strength to maintain her composure. She encouraged him to continue, expressing her eagerness for more intensity. Izuku responded by increasing his rhythm, moving with greater urgency. In a playful shift, he removed one hand from her hips and playfully swatted her, the sound resonating in the room. Kyoka gasped, a mix of surprise and excitement coursing through her, prompting Izuku to repeat the action until her cheeks flushed a bright red. Kyoka continued to react to Izuku's movements, overwhelmed by the sensations. After several moments, she reached a peak of exhilaration, her body responding uncontrollably. Eventually, Izuku felt himself nearing his own 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐸 and embraced her tightly. With a triumphant shout, he expressed his feelings, and they shared a moment of closeness. Exhausted, Izuku wrapped his arms around Kyoka, pulling her into a comfortable position as they both drifted off to sleep. Morning light filtered into Izuku's dorm room, gently waking him. He blinked, confused about his state of undress and the warmth he felt. The answer stirred beside him as Kyoka opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. They exchanged a silent moment, both feeling a mix of nervousness and curiosity. Izuku, always the one to break the silence, spoke first. He expressed his uncertainty about the situation, to which Kyoka responded with a relaxed acknowledgement, playfully recalling the previous night. They shared a light-hearted moment, and Izuku admitted he had no regrets about their experience. Kyoka moved closer, expressing her longing to repeat their shared moment, sealing it with a gentle kiss. They embraced, savoring the aftermath of their connection. Momo Yaoyorozu, known for her keen observation skills, prided herself on her ability to analyze situations effectively. This talent had contributed to her acceptance into UA University. However, despite her analytical prowess, she often found herself naive in social matters. When her new best friend Kyokajiro grew closer to Izuku Midoriya, Momo's curiosity peaked. The two spent nearly every evening together studying, which raised Momo's suspicions. She noted the occasional absence of Kyoka until the next day, sometimes noticing a limp or a sore throat, leading her to wonder if they were more than just study partners. Momo's imagination ran wild as she envisioned the two in various scenarios, prompting her to seek the truth. During one of their study sessions, she decided to investigate. Using her quirk, she created a small RC car equipped with a camera and discreetly slid it under the door to Kyoka's room. Returning to her own space, she activated the camera, eager to uncover what was truly happening between her friends. Momo was taken aback by the unexpected exclamation that echoed through the room, and even more so by the scene unfolding before her. Izuku was holding Kyoka close, their movements quick and fervent. From her vantage point, Momo could see the tension in Kyoka's throat, though the details of Izuku's physique remained obscured. Momo's thoughts stumbled as she watched the two engaged in their passionate exchange, her hands instinctively moving toward her shorts. As Izuku finally released Kyoka, the sight of his bare form nearly overwhelmed Momo. She marveled at his impressive stature. Izuku's confidence was evident as he playfully interacted with Kyoka, eliciting gasps and sounds of surprise from her. Momo felt a rush of warmth as she conjured a creation of her own, a device that mirrored Izuku's impressive size. As she carefully explored her own sensation, she couldn't tear her gaze away from the couple. Izuku lifted Kyoka, positioning her against him, their bodies entwined. With a careful touch, he guided their movements, and the atmosphere was charged with excitement. The sounds of their shared experience filled the air, growing more intense as they lost themselves in the moment. Throughout the evening, Momo continued to observe the couple, captivated by their dynamic and the various positions they explored. She was astonished by Izuku's stamina and energy, which seemed boundless, fueling her own intrigue. Eventually, Momo found herself unable to continue her own exploration. Setting aside her creation, she reluctantly decided to turn off the camera, formulating a plan in her mind. Kyoka strolled through the halls of UA, eagerly anticipating her time with Izuku. Recalling the delightful memories they had shared over the past few days, she entered the girls' bathroom and was greeted by her friend, Momo Yaoyorozu. With a smile, Kyoka acknowledged her. Momo, however, remained silent, her cheeks flushed. Instead, she pulled out her phone and displayed something on the screen. As Kyoka watched the video, her expression shifted to one of shock as she recognized the scene featuring herself and Izuku. Turning off the video, Momo's smile widened at Kyoka's reaction. She had something important to discuss with her friend. Izuku waited with anticipation for Kyoka to arrive at his room. The previous nights had been exhilarating, each one filled with unforgettable moments. Reflecting on how much his life had changed since meeting Yagi, he felt a sense of gratitude. When Kyoka knocked, Izuku invited her in, but his smile faltered upon seeing Momo standing beside her, both of them giggling. Kyoka stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She looked at Izuku and made a surprising request, suggesting that he engage with Momo. Izuku's mind raced as he processed her words. Momo, still playful, revealed her phone, showcasing the video. With a mischievous grin, she teased Izuku about their late-night activities, hinting at the impropriety of their behavior. Caught up in the moment, Momo missed the exchange of glances between Izuku and Kyoka, as well as the subtle nod from Kyoka to her partner. In an instant, Izuku activated his quirk, surprising Momo as he swiftly maneuvered her into a new position, his intentions clear. Momo gasped in surprise, her playful demeanor shifting as Izuku confronted her about her actions. He expressed his frustration, revealing the truth behind her facade and challenging her motives. Izuku did not give Momo a moment to respond as he leaned in closer, resting his face against her chest. He began to explore the softness of her skin with gentle touches. Momo let out a soft sound of surprise, her cheeks flushing as she felt his attention. With a playful grin, Izuku noticed the state of her clothing, which had become disheveled. He commented on her lack of undergarments, teasing her lightly. As he removed his shirt and tossed it aside, he caught a glimpse of Kyoka sitting nearby, her focus on herself. Redirecting his attention back to Momo, he prepared to reveal more of himself, feeling a rush of excitement. The atmosphere was charged as he continued to engage with Momo, their connection deepening with each passing moment. Izuku felt a thrill as he embraced the intimacy of the situation, closing his eyes and losing himself in the sensations around him. The room was filled with a mix of emotions, and he was determined to savor every moment. Momo struggled, feeling overwhelmed as she coughed and turned away, trying to regain her composure. Izuku, with a mischievous grin, gently tugged on her ponytail, guiding her attention toward Kyoka, who was now holding up her phone, capturing the moment. Izuku snapped a photo and noticed that Momo seemed lost in her thoughts. He playfully nudged her to regain her focus. He reminded her that Kyoka had just taken a picture of her in a rather compromising situation, and he wanted to ensure she was aware of it. Izuku held the girl firmly, positioning her to face Kyoka, who was supported by Izuku's forearms beneath her knees. His hands were clasped behind her head, creating a tense atmosphere. Kyoka felt a rush of excitement as she observed the scene unfold. Izuku and Momo were caught in a moment of intense connection, their emotions swirling as they engaged with one another. Momo, overwhelmed by the sensations, lost herself in the experience. As the moment progressed, Izuku decided to change their position, gently guiding Momo onto the bed. He playfully tapped her back, feeling a rush of excitement as he continued their interaction with enthusiasm. Kyoka, feeling the energy between them, wrapped her arms around Izuku from behind, planting soft kisses on his neck and shoulders, admiring his strong physique. She playfully asked how Momo felt, and Izuku responded with a grin, expressing his delight in the moment they were sharing. Kyoka expressed her satisfaction before gently guiding Izuku's chin to meet her gaze. She reminded him that he belonged to her, emphasizing that while he could have other relationships, their bond was special and unique. Izuku acknowledged her words, his voice soft yet filled with warmth. He wrapped an arm around Kyoka's waist and shared a loving kiss, which she eagerly returned. After breaking the kiss, Izuku turned his attention to Momo, who was still recovering from their earlier encounter. He noted that they would need to help her adjust. Kyoka commented on Momo's inexperience, seemingly unaware of the irony in her statement. She encouraged Izuku to give Momo his all. With a determined nod, Izuku activated his quirk, increasing his power to 8%. His movements became a blur as he focused on Momo. The bed creaked under his weight, and Momo struggled to maintain her composure, her face resting against the bed. After a few moments of intense activity, Izuku felt a surge of pleasure. He exclaimed about Momo's tightness, urging her to embrace the experience. As he reached his peak, Momo's eyes fluttered, and a serene smile graced her lips as she surrendered to the moment. Afterward, Izuku withdrew, observing the aftermath with Kyoka as a mixture of their essence flowed from Momo. Noticing Kyoka's jacks, he felt a familiar sensation and pulled her close, sharing another kiss before positioning her beside Momo. With a playful grin, he leaned in and left a mark on her neck. He playfully teased Kyoka about her plans for the night, pinning her to the bed as her delighted sounds filled the room. Izuku felt a sense of happiness as he enjoyed the company of his friends. Class 1A was on their way to the USJ, a special area at UA designed to simulate unexpected situations and teach students about rescue operations. While Izuku was eager for the upcoming exercise, his thoughts drifted to the hero costumes of his companions. He admired Kyoka's outfit, which beautifully showcased her personality and accentuated her legs. Momo's costume was equally captivating, revealing just enough to capture his attention. Tsuyu Asui interrupted his thoughts, bluntly commenting on his quirk's similarities to All Might's. Izuku, careful to avoid staring at her figure, shook his head in response. He acknowledged her request to use her first name, agreeing to call her Tsuyu. The atmosphere lightened as classmates cheered and encouraged the camaraderie. Izuku introduced himself in return, clarifying that the comparison to All Might wasn't entirely accurate. Kirishima, sitting nearby, questioned Izuku's statement about their strengths. Izuku explained that while both he and All Might possessed great power, his quirk had limitations that could lead to injury if pushed to its maximum. The bus fell silent as everyone processed his words, curiosity evident on their faces. Uraraka asked for clarification, tilting her head in confusion. Izuku elaborated on how his body couldn't handle the full extent of his quirk, allowing him to use a portion of it effectively but not without risk. He blushed slightly as a classmate reminded him of the time his punch had created a vacuum, causing significant damage during practice. He acknowledged that while he could deliver powerful strikes, his physique was better suited for speed rather than sheer strength. Kirishima expressed his excitement, hardening his arms and stating that it was impressive, even more so than his own basic hardening. Izuku countered that Kirishima's quirk was ideal for both offense and defense, encouraging him to think creatively about its applications. He noted that the best heroes often use their quirks in unconventional ways to enhance their effectiveness. Mina chimed in, suggesting that if they were discussing impressive quirks, Todoroki, Bakugo, and Izuku were the clear standouts. Tsuyu added that Bakugo's attitude could be a significant drawback. Bakugo, overhearing, reacted angrily, causing small explosions to erupt from his palms, which annoyed Kyoka, who was seated next to him. Kaminari teased Bakugo, comparing his personality to a mix of old garbage and sewer water, prompting laughter from the others and further aggravating Bakugo. Before Bakugo could respond, Aizawa stood up, glaring at the group as the bus came to a stop. He instructed everyone to disembark. Once they were all outside, Aizawa directed their attention to the building behind him and explained its purpose, asking if there were any questions. Bakugo, not raising his hand, questioned how this would help them combat villains. Aizawa, visibly annoyed, reminded Bakugo that fighting wasn't always the answer. He emphasized the importance of adapting their strategies when their quirks might not be effective against certain villains. Bakugo scoffed at the suggestion that his quirk was weak, but Aizawa clarified that while Bakugo's quirk was powerful, overconfidence could lead to failure in their primary mission, protecting the innocent. He warned Bakugo against further interruptions, threatening detention. Reluctantly, Bakugo nodded, and seeing no further questions, Aizawa led the class into the USJ, where they encountered a small figure in a space suit at the top of the stairs. Uraraka's eyes lit up with excitement as she recognized 13, the space hero, and expressed her admiration, which made Izuku smile at her enthusiasm. 13 acknowledged the admiration and proceeded to explain the various zones within the USJ, detailing the nature of their quirk and the precautions necessary for their safety while helping others. The students grasped the seriousness of 13's message and were eager for the exercise to commence, gazing out over the plaza area. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Izuku, Tsuyu, and Mineta found themselves on a half-collapsed boat in the water zone. Izuku coughed out water, thanking Tsuyu as he steadied himself on shaky legs. Tsuyu, distracted by her thoughts, found herself admiring Izuku's physique. As she helped him out of the water, she maintained her composure despite the awkwardness of the situation. Listening to Izuku's plan for their escape, Tsuyu nodded and used her quirk to assist Mineta, ignoring his protests. As Izuku began to charge his power, he prepared to unleash his attack. With a determined expression, he shouted his signature move, releasing a powerful rush of air that cleared the water beneath him. Tsuyu leaped at that moment, while Mineta threw his ball to ensnare the villains struggling against the whirlpool. Using her quirk, Tsuyu guided Izuku and Mineta toward the edge of the water zone. Upon reaching safety, they noticed Aizawa being overwhelmed by a large, dark creature brought by the villains. Tsuyu opened her mouth to suggest a stealthy approach, but her words were cut short as Izuku's aura intensified, signaling his readiness to confront the threat ahead. Tsuyu and Mineta watched as Midoriya prepared to confront the monstrous foe. He instructed them to take Aizawa and escape, leaving no room for objections. As Midoriya tensed and moved, his figure became a blur. The two friends shielded their eyes from the dust kicked up by his swift movements. In an instant, he seized Nomu's free arm and flipped the creature to the ground, compelling it to release Aizawa. Without hesitation, Midoriya grabbed his teacher, a figure he deeply respected, and blurred once more, handing Aizawa's unconscious form to his friends, who took him gently and hurried toward the exit. The apparent leader of the villains, Shigaraki Tamura, growled in frustration, scratching his neck as he observed Midoriya's actions. He commanded Nomu to eliminate the young hero, urging it to finish the job properly. Nomu howled and charged at Midoriya, who blurred away just as the creature's fist struck the ground, creating a crack in the earth. Midoriya floated in the air, his arms enveloped in a dark material. He extended his hands, and the black substance flowed from his arms, ensnaring Nomu's limbs and rendering it immobile. The creature roared in defiance, struggling against its restraints, but Midoriya acted swiftly, pulling the beast toward him. As the tendrils dissipated, Midoriya drew back his fist and unleashed a powerful uppercut, calling out his attack. The strike connected with Nomu's chin, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. However, the monster remained unfazed and attempted to grasp Midoriya. Regaining his composure, Midoriya seized Nomu's wrists, twisting his body and spinning in midair to build momentum before launching the creature into the ground, creating a deep crater. Breathing heavily, Midoriya landed in a defensive stance, ready for the next encounter. As Nomu emerged from the hole, he prepared himself for another round. Nearby, Kurogiri the portal user appeared alongside Shigaraki. Kurog reported that he had incapacitated 13, but one student had managed to escape. A chill ran down Midoriya's spine upon hearing that news. He focused on the villains, hoping it was Iida, who had gotten away to reach the school for help. Shigaraki's frustration grew, and he expressed his anger toward Kurogiri, threatening him while taking deep breaths to regain his composure. He then instructed Kurogiri to bring out the others. Kurogiri expanded his mass, and two figures emerged from the portal, one female with a microphone and one male carrying a large camera. Shigaraki barked orders at them, ensuring they captured everything. Across the nation, television swatched to the live feed from the USJ, showcasing Shigaraki Tamura at the forefront. He introduced himself as the leader of the League of Villains and announced a grim program titled The Death of UA's Class 1A. Shigaraki's sinister laughter echoed nationwide, instilling fear in civilians and putting heroes on high alert. He warned that any sign of interference would lead to dire consequences for the students. The only hero he wished to see was All Might. He gestured away from the camera, which shifted to show Midoriya and Nomu, declaring that the audience would witness the young hero's struggle against their fulminant weapon, the anti-All Might creature, Nomu. As the black beast roared and charged at him, Midoriya steeled himself, channeling 75% of One for All into his body. He leaped toward Nomu, remembering that his previous punch had little effect. Instead, he focused on delivering rapid strikes. Moving with incredible speed, he darted around the creature, landing quick blows that Nomu struggled to counter. After several minutes of agile attacks on Nomu's joints, which the creature shrugged off, Midoriya built up momentum and launched himself toward the beast's head, driving his heel down with force. With a powerful strike, he broke through Nomu's defenses, sending the creature crashing into the ground and leaving a